everybody. This is Christina Lopes. I'm so glad to be with you. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to start a two-part series, so I'm going to be talking about trauma, specifically pertaining to childhood sexual trauma. Now, this is a topic that's been really kind of high on my radar. Not just have I been connecting with other light workers who seem to all be experiencing some sort of resurfacing of childhood trauma, especially pertaining to sexual trauma. And I wanted to, it's taken me a while to do this video because I too have been going through a process of healing and integration of sexual abuse, of trauma from the past. It was actually a memory that was really, really kind of held in my subconscious mind. I dissociated from it. And so I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my story, how I healed, and I'm going to start sharing some tools. I'm going to share one of them in this video, and then in a second video I will be continuing the discussion of trauma, and I'm going to share another tool that has been miraculous in my own journey of healing. So let's get into this first part, and that is I want to talk about first how does trauma occur and what happens at the exact moment of childhood trauma, childhood sexual trauma especially. And then the second part of the video, I'm going to talk about what happens after the trauma. So as we're growing up, what happens? And then the third part of the video, I'm going to share with you a tool that has helped me heal. Okay, so in this first part, what happens at the moment of trauma? What happens is well known in psychology. It's called the process of dissociation. This happens to a lot of us, and it's happened to me. So just to give you a little bit of my story, I had my spiritual awakening in 2013, and at that moment, I actually wrote my first book, and you'll notice if you read my first book, it's a two-part biography. The second one's coming out soon. But if you read that book, you'll notice that nowhere in that book had I discussed that I had been sexually abused as a child. And it wasn't that I left that out on purpose. It was because I did not remember. I had dissociated mentally from that very, very deep trauma. I knew for a very long time that I was broken in a sense. And nobody's really broken, but I think you know what I mean. I knew that I was deeply wounded. I had a severe, severe heart block. I didn't know how to love people. I had a lot of problems with intimacy, with love. And I thought that initially that when I awoke in 2013 and I started going on the path of healing so that then I could help others heal, I thought that all of this trauma had come and all of this closed-heartedness had come because I had had a painful childhood where I had a very ill father and there were a lot of things going on in my childhood. And I thought that it was these specific childhood memories pertaining to my father that were the source of why I was so blocked in life and why I lived a bit of inner chaos in my life. So lo and behold, that wasn't really the reason, because last year what happened was I had a really painful memory surface that I had been molested as a child, and I had dissociated from this memory. I had no recollection of it. I had some slight feelings every once in a while that something else had happened, but I didn't have any clear memories. So when this memory came up, it really, not only was it very painful, but it was also really fascinating for me to observe that at the moment when this memory came up, I had been a healer, a coach for over 4 years. And so here I was, an experienced meditator, a healer of others, a life coach for others, a guide for others, and I had things within me that I didn't even know existed. So that got me thinking, how many more people out there are so wounded in this respect that they dissociate from these experiences? I actually just the other day, as I've been going through my own healing process in these past months, I was listening to a podcast where pretty famous spiritual teacher, Gabby Bernstein, was talking about how she had also just remembered, this memory came up, that she had been sexually abused as a child. And she gave a startling statistic. She said that in the U.S., the statistic is that 1 in every 3 girls is sexually abused as a child, and 1 in every 6 boys is sexually abused as a child. And that just hurt my heart so much. But it also it planted a seed of furthering my mission. Now that these memories have come up in me, I can more readily help others. And that's really what, I'm starting to focus more of my coaching work on people that have gone through severe trauma, especially sexual trauma. Okay, so This is happening a lot with light workers, because light workers are people that have come to have a specific healing and teaching mission for the planet. So there are a lot of light workers coming in, and a lot of us, if not 100% of us, of light workers on the planet, we come in and we experience some really painful things in life. And the grand purpose of that is that it then propels us into our mission more fully. But of course, while you're going through things and trying to heal things, it's not fun. So now going into what happens at the moment of trauma. Okay, so I was molested starting when I was 4 years old. And what happens is that at the moment where the trauma is occurring, there is a dissociation. Psychology has known about this for a really long time. There's a dissociation of your psyche where your little child literally dissociates, and then the rest of you keeps growing up, and that wounded child stays the same, kind of frozen in time. All right, so there's a lot being said about dissociation psychologically. What isn't talked about as much, and that I have come to learn and has helped me heal a lot, is that there's also spiritual dissociation. And this is where I'm so thankful to anthropologist and shaman Alberto Villoldo for his books, because I discovered them recently. He's a shaman. He was trained by Inca shamans for more than 25 years. And he has really brought shamanism into the West. And one of the things that shamans talk about is this spiritual dissociation. They say that when people go through trauma, it's not only their mind that frequently dissociates, it's their soul. So literally at the moment of trauma, spiritually what is happening is that a fragment of your soul can leave you and go to the other side. And the reason that your soul does that is because at the moment of the trauma could be so severe that if a fragment of the soul doesn't leave you, you could die, because the psyche could literally explode, not be able to deal with the situation. So this actually occurs frequently when we're going through trauma. A piece of your soul or a fragment of your soul can leave your energy system and go to the other side. Now, that really got me thinking, you know, as if one soul fragment leaves for every trauma that we have, let's say that happens, how many soul fragments do we have out there that aren't a part of us? And this really, as I was reading Alberto Villoldo's books, it really, really ringed true to me, because this really happened to me. I spent years and years feeling like something was lost, feeling like I wasn't home. I didn't know where home was, but I just wanted to go home. And so this was really my mind trying to reason, trying to find words for me missing fragments of my energy. Okay, so this is what happens. This is the dissociation that happens when we experience severe trauma in childhood. We dissociate mentally and we dissociate spiritually sometimes. So fragments of ourselves leave us. Okay, so that's generally what happens at the time of trauma. And when you're dissociating, some people, you know, I've had people tell me that they could remember exactly what happened to them. They could remember being sexually abused perfectly well, you know, but for people like me and Gabby Bernstein, we did not remember. So I had this memory surface when I was almost 39 years old. So, and I had already been a spiritual worker for a really long time. Gabby Bernstein, the same thing. So for some of us, we may remember this our whole lives, and others we don't. It doesn't matter. The dissociation occurs whether you remember it or not, okay? So that's the first part. Now, the second part I want to talk about is what happens if that dissociation stays unhealed. So as you're growing up, your adult self keeps growing and experiencing life and going through its own things, but your child, your wounded child, remains there. But she remains there with some really held beliefs. And I'm going to share one of my beliefs. You know, I don't think I've ever been this vulnerable on a video before, because this is something that I've been integrating very recently, so it's very fresh in my memory, not exactly easy to talk about. But it's something that I really want to get out there, because I really want to help all of you go through this, because there's light at the end of the tunnel, you know. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We're so loved and we can heal, and I want to help you heal. So, but going back to the child. So when the child dissociates, the child will find some beliefs. She will start thinking certain thoughts that turn to beliefs, that turn to ingrained patterns. And I'll share what my foundational belief with the little wounded child's foundational belief was. I was molested by a dear family member that I loved very much. So when that happened, what that 4-year-old thought was. That 4-year-old immediately associated loving someone with being hurt. So the thought that that little child held on to was, the people that love me the most are also the ones that hurt me the most. Okay? Now, that child held that belief, and she held it, and the rest of me grew up, but always living life through that wounded foundational belief. So another thought that my inner child had that I just recently discovered was she didn't trust anyone, and we can see why, So at the moment of the dissociation, at the moment of the trauma, your inner child, the psyche of your inner child is trying to do everything she can to keep you alive because these traumas are so severe. She's trying to survive mentally. So it makes sense that she would come up with a belief like the people that hurt you the most are the ones that love you the most. So as a little child, my inner child associated love with pain, love with pain. So when I grew up, look at how problematic this became. It meant that every time that I came close to someone intimately, my inner child would start ding, 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 dinging these flags, red flag, you're in danger. Why? Because if that person loved me and if I loved that person, they would also eventually hurt me. And so this was really, really painful to live this way. And I closed my heart for so many years. I awoke when I was 35 years old. So it was a lot of years of pain and just, chugging through life with a closed heart. And this is one of the reasons why I call myself a heart alchemist now. And that's what I help others do, is open their hearts, even if you've been through severe trauma. So as you grow up, you're still operating from that inner child, those inner child beliefs. And guess what? If your adult self doesn't even know of the existence of the inner child, don't think she doesn't exist. She exists and she commands your life. And looking back on my life, I know exactly when my inner child would act up, take command of his situation, and all hell would break loose. There would be a lot of destruction whenever the inner child made decisions. And we can see why, right? Like, how can a 4, 5, or 6, or 7-year-old child, how can we expect them to make adult decisions? They can't. So as we're going through life, as we're going into adulthood, that's why this inner child healing is super important, because if we don't come into contact with that inner child that dissociated so long ago, she'll continue to command our life, and we'll never step fully into our mission because there's part of us that are unhealed. So that's generally how the dissociation and trauma affects us along the years. And now this third part, I wanted to share with you one tool that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And then I'm going to be talking about a second one in a second video. The first tool is inner child work. I've been doing that a lot. I spent the last few months doing that. And so what inner child work is, it's simple work, but it's painful work. So I don't want to give you the impression that this is easy. It's not. But if you're watching this, and if you've watched this up until now, you're a light worker, and you're a light worker with a profound mission on this earth. So whether you like me to say this or not, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. And I'm going to keep repeating this until I die. So, all right. So inner child work. What do you do? What do you do? If you know you've had severe childhood trauma, even if you don't remember it, like for instance, Gabby Bernstein and myself, we didn't remember. There are people that know exactly what happened to them in childhood, and they can say it in detail. I've had people talk to me about these, and clients also. So it doesn't matter whether you remember or not. If you know, the more you can remember in terms of knowing that these things happen to you, the faster you heal, because you can integrate your awareness into that memory, and then it just heals more quickly. But when you start to do the inner child work, it's an easy process. It's not easy to go through, but it's an easy process. What I do is a meditation with journaling. All right? So what you're going to do is you are going to sit in meditation, and you're going to have a journal next to you. And you're going to close your eyes, and you are going to start talking to your inner child. You're going to start talking to your inner child. This was a little difficult for me, because I didn't actually realize that I had an inner child to talk to. I thought I was one, but we're not. There are various parts of us. So sit down in meditation, and what you're going to do is you are going to focus your mind on your belly area. The belly area, the first 3 chakras of your system. The belly area is where the inner child resides energetically. Okay? So you're going to close your eyes and you're going to bring your attention down to your belly. And then you're just going to sit there and you're going to mentally start talking to her, or out loud if you want to, if you're alone. You're going to mentally start talking to your inner child and you're going to start asking questions. It was through this conversation that I actually unearthed this belief that I had, this deep inner belief that said the people that love me the most are also the ones that hurt me the most. It was through this conversation. When I started talking to my inner child, she wouldn't talk back to me because she didn't trust anyone, not even a part of herself. So this is how traumatized this inner child was. So what you're going to start doing is you're going to start talking to that inner child. And then what you're going to do is, as the answers come up, you're going to open your eyes and you're going to start writing. Automatic journaling is such a miraculous tool, all right? You're going to write down what the child is saying to you. I started asking questions. I said, how do you feel? Because your inner child is like a real child. She has some wants and desires, things that she really needs, okay? So what does a child need? To feel safe, to feel loved, to feel heard. These are 3 really foundational needs of children. So your inner child feels the same way. She needs to feel safe, she needs to feel loved, and she needs to feel heard. Okay? So you're going to do that now. It's a very mothering energy. This wasn't easy. If you have children, this will be easier for you because you know what it's like to be a mother or a father. I'm not a biological mom. So for me, it was kind of, I was starting to talk to this child in a mothering way, but I've never been a mother. So it took some practice. I started asking her questions. What did she need? What could I do to help her? What could I do to help her calm down? This is so important because you'll end up, your inner child will take over and act out in destructive ways only if she's unsafe, if she feels unsafe because the adult self isn't protecting her. So when you're doing this inner child work, the end result of this work is that your adult self now takes the driver's seat and doesn't let the child drive anymore. But it takes practice, right? It takes practice because if you've been living from the place of your wounded child, she's going to want to act out and protect you the whole time, but it can't be that way. It has to be the other way around. So this journaling exercise is really cool because it helps you start connecting with what your inner child is feeling. And it starts helping you step more into the adult. You are the adult now. Your inner child is beautiful, but she shouldn't be commanding your life. And that's what was happening in my life. So the inner child, she's beautiful, and what she needs is when she feels safe, loved, and heard, then she's that part of you that's joyful, that giggles at bees and birds. It's the part of you that plays. It's the part of you that's creative. It's such a beautiful part, but we don't want it to be wounded. We want it to be healed, okay? So as you're journaling, you're going to start speaking to your inner child more and more and more, and you are going to start finding out what her foundational beliefs are. Ask her. Ask her what she's thinking. I remember when I was talking to my inner child, she initially wouldn't talk to me, and I said to her, mentally, I was into meditation, and I said mentally, why aren't you talking to her? And she wouldn't respond. And it was only then that I understood she didn't talk to me because she didn't trust me. She didn't trust anyone. That's how I found my own inner child. Okay? So then I started talking to her and I started mothering her, and she opened up more and she started to tell me what the foundational beliefs. I wrote it down in a journal. I drew a lot. I wrote a lot. And the more I wrote, the more I healed. All right? So I'm going to continue talking in another video. In part 2, next week, we're going to talk about another process that I use to heal my trauma. It's a shamanic practice called soul retrieval, but I'm not going to get into that too much today. I just wanted to leave you with this. We can heal. We're here to heal. We're here to heal others, but the healer has to heal self before he or she can heal another. So please, if you're watching this video, and if you've been here this long, this has probably happened to you. If you need help, you can reach out to me. You know where to find me. You can email me at info@christina-lopes.com. But first of all, know that if this is coming up for you to process, it's because you're ready. It's because you're ready. Notice that, when my sexual trauma came up, or Gabby Bernstein's sexual trauma came up, I don't know how old she was, but I was almost 39. So I thought many times, why is this coming up to process now? Why didn't it happen before when I awoke in 2013? Why did it take 4 years of spiritual evolution for this memory to come up and be healed? It was because I wasn't ready. That's all it is. It was because I wasn't ready. The universe brings you things to the surface to be healed when you're ready. That's how loved we are. Isn't it amazing? The universe never sends us anything to deal with that we're not capable and don't have the tools to deal with at that specific time. We're so loved. We're so guided. And I want you to never forget that. So loved, so guided, and light worker, there are other light workers that can help. When I went through this spiritual process, I have a healer that I'd like to thank. His name is Steve Nobel. He's from the UK. He's a beautiful healer, and he helped me through this. And he's a beautiful, beautiful light worker. And like Steve, there's me. There's so many people. There are so many healers out there. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You're not alone. You're not the only one that this has happened to. There are many of us here going through this process. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You are so loved. And when you heal, you must heal. You must heal in order to step in fully into your mission. But when you heal, whoa, when you heal, I can't even explain to you guys how I feel. I feel tired, but I feel at peace. I feel home. I don't feel fragmented anymore. And that's just such a beautiful feeling. I don't feel fragmented anymore. And this is what I wish for you. And in fact, I'm focusing more on this in my healing work now. I'm working more with clients that have traumatizing pasts, that have a history of sexual abuse, because I know that I can be of service there. Because I know I've been through it. I know that when you heal, when you feel whole, finally, you step into your mission more fully. All right. I love you all. Stay tuned for the second video that's going to be about the second tool, soul retrieval. It's also going to be pertaining, same topic of sexual trauma. I'm going to be talking about this for a while now. If you have any questions that I didn't answer in this video, you know where to find me. info@Christina-Lopes.com. And I will see you soon. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Bye.